years I taught in the EPIK program. That stands for English Program in Korea, and I was actually in Seoul, so I was also kind of part of SMOE, which is the Seoul Metropolitan Office of Education. I know that's a lot of acronyms I just threw out there, but yeah, basically things change in Korea a lot, so it depends if you sometimes EPIK recruited the people in Seoul, sometimes it's SMOE. But
Okay.
I was kind of both, if that makes sense.
So Ryan, you I understand you got placed in the EPIK program, but how does that program work? You apply for certain cities because it's the English program in Korea all throughout Korea, not just Seoul and the surrounding areas.
Yeah,
So can you just walk us through the application process with EPIK?
sure. Basically, I went through a recruiter, sort of like you, but I wish you guys were around back when I went through to make it easier.
Appreciate it.
But yeah, so basically you fill out the standard application. It was like, similar to like a job application that you would do in the States. But then you also needed to get a lot of things like notarized and a thing called apostille, which is basically kind of like a notary on top of a notary from the
Sure.
state. You need an FBI background check. You send a photo with the application. You write essays, do sample lesson plans, get recommendations from either one of your previous managers from your job or even a college professor, give in your college transcripts, things like that.
Yeah.
And then basically you wait until everything, it takes a while to send that in. And then I had like a pre-interview, and you have to rank your placement by, rank your choices. So number one for me was Seoul. And I think you did like your top 5 choices. And actually in my interview it was kind of funny because I ranked like my top 5. Like second was Jeju or something, Jeju Island.
In the South, yeah.
Yeah, and then on the interview, the pre-interview, the recruiter was like, "So Ryan, Seoul is still available, but your other 4 choices are taken. So please give me your next 4 choices." So they put me on the spot. I didn't really know, and kind of embarrassingly, I ran to the book or a map and I was like, "Oh, this looks good," and I just ran.
And just kind of threw some cities down.
Yeah. But I mean, I had the sense of adventure, but luckily I got placed in Seoul anyway, so it worked out.
Sure. That's fantastic, right? I know in the program right now, this is pretty accurate, that they are mostly placing teachers throughout the program outside of Seoul because they've cut a lot of positions in Seoul, and that's. Can you agree with that statement? Is that pretty much true?
To my knowledge, that's absolutely true. I was kind of lucky because I was in a weird situation for a couple years. I taught there from August 2010 until August of 2013. But I was a middle school teacher in the public school system, and in my case in Seoul, a lot of the middle school teachers got placed into like after a couple years, or after a year, I guess, the contract. A lot of them Seoul got rid of a lot of middle school teachers, native teachers, so they placed them into high school or middle school. Actually, I mean elementary school.
Elementary, sure.
Yeah, actually, I think they got rid of a lot of high school teachers too, but for whatever reason, my school kept me on because it was in their district's budget. So, but the numbers seem to be dwindling in Seoul,
Sure.
as far as I know.
And to kind of support what Ryan was saying, the new president is focused a lot on science and math education. So a lot of positions aren't available in middle and high schools for this program, but there are a lot of positions for elementary schools still, and outside of Seoul and other cities especially. So that's something to definitely keep in mind. Next, Ryan, I just wanted to ask you about your position at the school and what a typical day was like and what you taught at the school.
Okay. So my position was the native English teacher or a conversation teacher. So basically, I was supposed to teach conversation. So what does that mean? I taught a lot of the first year. I taught a lot of lessons about like idioms and good vocabulary because my students were really well versed in grammar, and they're really good at reading and listening as well. So the first year I took my own lesson plans, and I did a few games and things like that. But it all depends on your school and your principal and your English program. Some principals and some schools are more ambitious than others towards education, especially in English. Um, and sometimes the principal might want you not to teach just conversation, but teach like grammar, because the Korean students love to learn grammar for
Sure,
tests.
because they're good at it, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And but the second and third year, I actually taught a little bit from the textbook. I did the listening and speaking part of the textbook, and the reasoning behind that was because when I taught the first year, my own lessons, the kids kind of had the attitude that since my material wasn't on the test, and they could goof off more in my class. So when I taught the textbook, they paid attention more, and because it was on the test. But
Sure.
so I would teach like listening and speaking in the textbook, and then I'd have about class time was I'll talk about this in a second, but that was 40 minutes. Or 45 minutes, I forget. But yeah, generally it's different for high school and elementary school, but mine was, I think, about 45 minutes. High school is maybe 50.
Okay.
But anyway, so I would teach the textbook. That would take about 20 minutes, depending on the level of students. So then the other half of the class, I would teach my own things, like show them an interesting video to talk about or vocabulary. They really enjoyed the idioms, and that was something I really enjoyed teaching. But it's different for everyone's going to have a different experience. Or as a typical day, my classes school started at 8:20. They had a homeroom, and then the first period I think was 8:45. Classes ended for the day around 3 maybe, or 2:55, somewhere around there. But I had to stay until 4:20, so I was 8:20 to 4:20.
Okay.
You got an hour for lunch. I think there were 8 periods. And I would like to tell any prospective applicants just to to realize like things aren't always going to be set in stone, so things will change a lot. So for example,
right. While we're on that subject, I think that's important because I've obviously read and learned a lot about that, and I think it's important for other teachers. Korean and East Asian culture, I guess you could say as well. Things happen at the last minute very often. Can you explain that and kind of help teachers be prepared for that?
Yeah. Well, what I would say, number one, is if you're not sure, just ask. You can do a lot of things on your own. So, like for example, if let's say, I don't know, one day I go to school and I see kids with all these signs or something, or like they're dressed, not in their normal uniform, and I wasn't told, then I would say to like my head teacher or someone, hey, what's going on today? And they'd be like, oh, today's the student council student election day, so they're giving speeches, so third period's canceled. So now I know, but I don't know, sometimes they forget to tell you, or since you're not really in their hierarchy, or maybe even something as simple as the school activities administrator sends out an email to the messenger system to everyone, and then they're not really thinking about me because they're busy with their other stuff, and you just get lost in the shuffle. So
yeah. So that's interesting, right? Being perceptive too. It seems like you're saying, so you're not kind of caught, so you can kind of not be caught off guard as much. Right. Can I kind of talk to you about like grading in regards to like speaking tests, and because I think that's very different and new to foreign teachers. Can you walk us through the grading system?
Sure. So yeah, that's a good point. Some of my friends that taught at the public schools didn't have to grade speaking tests. I definitely did. And how it worked was basically my school gave me the freedom, like, I had carte blanche to do anything. So I just gave them a score out of 10. And I chose the topics, each semester. One of the topics was, I think, I'm trying to remember, like talk about your favorite vacation or something. And then, they get about 2 minutes, but I just looked for it to be, fluent and, lengthy and a good topic. So I gave them a score out of 1 to 10. But luckily, I mean, my students, a lot of them were prepared really hard, and I was in the Gangnam district, so a lot of the kids, I had a few American citizens, but a lot of times in the high levels, especially, yeah, it was like talking to a little brother or sister. So a lot of them, impressed me and talked about topics that even really advanced. So a lot of them got really good scores, and they took that a lot really seriously. And one other thing is it was really stressful for them during that time. So like I would walk into the classroom during those times, and they would be like really stressed out, but a lot of them, rose to the occasion, and it was really good.
It sounds great, Rye. It sounds like an awesome experience. Rye, the next question I have for you is, can you talk about some humorous or funny things that you really enjoyed while teaching?
Yeah, I mean, I can think of there were definitely a lot. Some of the things that come to the top of my head is one student called me Brad Pitt teacher all the time, and which was really funny. I don't, I never heard that before. Like if he had a question, he would be like, "Brad Pitt teacher, is this right?" And I'd be like, "Yeah." And I love you, Brad Pitt.
Did I guess he thought you were a celebrity, huh?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. Right. How about my last question for you is, what was one of your favorite subjects to teach, and why?
Um, you mean at the school? Like,
At school, sure.
oh yeah. So basically, yeah, I was just the English teacher, obviously. So I really enjoyed teaching idioms because it was really cool to like see the kids, understand it because like they would bring it up later. Like one time, um, I forget, like I can't think of a specific example that I taught, but it was really gratifying. Like when you would walk in the hallway and the kid would say what he learned like a couple months ago, and I'd be like, "Wow, he actually, understood," and I taught him something.
So it's very rewarding.
Yeah, and like it was just really cool because that's not the type of thing they'll learn in the textbook. Like, they won't learn kind of slang or like things we say in real life that, just don't get,
Kind of
taught in
lost
the
in
textbook.
translation sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, so that was really, really
Well,
fun.
right. Really appreciate you taking the time. That was Ryan O'Loughlin. He is from Westchester, Pennsylvania, with 3 years of experience in the Seoul public school system. Thank you so much, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Matt.